Okay, well, thank you very much. It's going to be very difficult to talk after, of course, you know, what we have heard, Catalina. But I'm going to try to do my best. And it is really a great pleasure to be here, because you cannot believe it, you know, what it is. In 2006, 2005, 2006, I moved from the States. And with Donna Strickland, we just, you know, well, it's not just, but I mean, we, you know, had demonstrated this idea, which can be extended. You know, it is, we started with producing short pulse, high intensity on a table, right? And of course, you know, we wanted to go higher and higher in intensity. We just saw that it was not a question so much of, I mean, we have shown all the pieces. What we needed to have was the money, the space, and the manpower, really, to realize our dream. So I moved to France, and at that time, you know, Europe was looking for new infrastructures. And by the way, Europe, you will see, has been very, very important, and it's very, very important for science. This, I really want really to stress it, and this, I'm really amazed what Europe has provided to us. And we shouldn't forget that. We shouldn't forget it. So when I came back from the States, I came to France. Europe was launching kind of an initiative to produce more infrastructures, okay? And they were looking for novel idea, novel infrastructures. So immediately, you know, I proposed an infrastructure which could really produce very ultra-high intensity, ultra-high peak power. And this proposal went to, you know, was examined and so on. And it was backed up by, we were 13 countries, I think, at the beginning, you know, and trying to produce in that a petawatt. That was the name, you know, a petawatt. A petawatt, you know, which a petawatt is 10 to the 15, which is millions of billions of watts, you know. And so it was a kind of very challenging things, and you know, there was so much, as you will see, things that we could do if we had high peak power. Anyway, so that was, and I proposed these infrastructures, not only the ELA infrastructures. The ELA infrastructures, at that time, when I proposed it, I thought it was going to be a French one, you know, on the, if you know where the École Polytechnique is, you know, on the Plateau de Saclay and so on. So I thought, you know, that's where we are going to build these facilities. So I proposed this idea. But the European Commission came, and the proposal was, it was on top. Okay, it was the number one. Okay, and I was very glad. I said, wow, sure, I'm going to have these beautiful infrastructures, you know, very next to my office, you know, and so on. But when we, it was very, I thought it was very nice. When we talk with the European Committee, European Committee said, you know, Gérard, we like very much your proposal. It's a very beautiful one. But there's one thing we cannot do, is to have it in France. Wow, it was not very exciting. No, we have to have in an emerging country. But this tells a lot about Europe, okay? And we should say thank you now, okay? And but now the question was, which one we were going to have it? They want an emerging country, okay, which one? So the candidates were at that time, and I know you are smiling, the candidate was Romania, Hungary, and Romania, Hungary, and Czechia, of course. But we wanted to have an infrastructure. It was supposed to be one roof infrastructure, you know. So we had a lot of debate, right, for about a year, you know, which country is that going to be this infrastructure will be built in. And after a lot of discussion, we decided that, and the fact that, by the way, I'm of course, you know, making a long story very short, because it was a really long story. And we already, Europe was giving a lot of money for infrastructures, but not science infrastructure. You know, for bridges, for schools, for hospitals, all these good things. And they had, at one point, they say, well, you know, maybe we are going to extend that to science infrastructures. So they were receiving a lot of money already, each country is for roads, bridges, and so on. So, you know, with a kilometer of highway, you can build a lot of expensive infrastructures. And then, the three, Romania, Czechia, and Hungary decided to apply, but they couldn't be 3 times the same one. They had to come up with infrastructure with different flavors, you know. And Hungary decided short pulses, femtoseconds, and so on. And Czechia was interested more about producing beams of high energy particles or radiations, okay? And Romania, because they were really very strong in nuclear physics, okay, wanted to apply now these infrastructures to the study of infrastructure, I'm sorry, to nuclear physics. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is the idea. That's why I'm so pleased to be here, because that it was 2005, 2006, and now, you know, 20 years later, or about, you know, we see these beautiful infrastructures, of course here, but also in Romania, and also in Czechia. And so, you know, I think we should really think about Europe. You know, I think we owe a lot to Europe. Anyway, so I'm going now to my talk. And, you know, I've been in a field of very short pulses and high intensity. We developed this technique that we call short pulse amplifications. And we made possible, you know, the production of these very, very high intensity pulses. And then we did that at the beginning, of course. We demonstrated this technique with my dear friend and students at that time, Donna Strickland. And when it was, you get the Nobel Prize in physics is announced the first Tuesday of October, okay, around noontime, okay. But that was a time where I was going to the pool to swim. I'm a swimmer. At least I was a swimmer. No, I'm not. So I was going to the pool, and so on. My secretary said, Gérard, come back, because there's this call that you get, from a foreign country and so on. And I look at my watch and say, well, this is noontime. And it's Tuesday. So I kind of zoom in my office, pick up the phone, and the chairman of the physics committee, got and tells me, Gérard, I have the honor, the pleasure, whatever, to announce that you are the Nobel Prize for 2018. And wow, I was, it's like a ton of bricks, which is going on you. And he said, but it's not over yet. There is more. What more? What can be more than that? You are going to share it with your student, Donna Strickland. And I was really, really glad, because it was amazing. I mean, at that time, Donna, I knew that there were only very, very few women in physics, And Donna was selected. And she was the third one, Marie Curie, Maya Gopper-Mayer, and Donna Strickland. In 120 years, this was amazing. So, I was very glad because I got it. But what was phenomenal, that is, I contributed to educate the third one and the third woman, to get. So I was very pleased. I said, now I can die, And he said, don't do that now, okay? It was very nice. So this is the way. So I'm going to tell you now what we can do with short pulse laser. Yeah. Okay. So of course, a few years after us, we had also these three nice and good friends, who also got the Nobel Prize for the short pulses applications and so on. So that was a great news for us. Okay, so the story starts, of course, by Ted Naiman. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows what Ted Naiman, who he is. He's the first guy who made a laser work. I mean, the laser really, the concept of laser came from Charlie Towns, okay? But what Charlie was proposing was a laser with, he had to be gas laser, He had to be, we couldn't, he has to be CW, and so on. And so, especially at Bell Lab, everybody in the world, were working on the lasers, trying to get the laser work. And at Bell, especially at Bell Labs, which was really the dominant labs at that time. And you have this young fellow, Ted Naiman at that time, freshly came out from Stanford, was working at Malibu, very, compared to Bell Lab, it was very small labs and so on. And this guy made the first laser. And it was not a gas laser, it was a ruby laser, because the other things they were prescribing, Charlie Towns, it has to be a 4-level system, because 3-level was very difficult. It was too much energy needed to get a 4-level, 3-level system to work. So, and this young fellow comes with a solid ruby and a 3 levels systems. And so it was against the grain, And so anyway, he made it, he showed it, but of course, it was not, so it was May 16, 1960, in the afternoon, around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that the first burst of coherent light came out. Okay? Remember that light, of course, was produced as a consequence of the Big Bang 13 billion years, but until now, it was only incoherent light. And this guy, this young fellow, made it the first burst of coherent light. And of course, everybody, especially at Bell Labs, they couldn't believe it. They said, no, that's not true. It cannot be true. So they spent quite a bit of time trying to demonstrate that it was not quite laser light, and so on. But finally, everybody in the world duplicated the experiment of Ted Naiman, and they found the same result. And of course, we improved. It's true that the first burst of coherent light was not really, it was not ideal, but it showed the concept. So this is amazing story, amazing story. Okay, so this is a laser, this is a gas laser, and we know we are not going to talk too much about that, but what's really very amazing about laser, and that was what I started about at that time, just a few years after, what I was amazed is, what the possibilities of that this new light was offering, And of course, now the fact that is coherent, and it is, light is oscillatory, right? And so the fact that it's coherent, that you can make fringes. You have the sinusoid can be short. At the beginning, of course, when that defines the coherence, it was produced, the pulse of light was in milliseconds, even microsecond, millisecond, okay? And a lot of work went really to make it CW. And now, of course, coherent light, can be produced over hundreds, over really seconds. And in seconds, of course, light propagates 300,000 kilometers. So you can have coherent light. These oscillations, can extend to 300,000 kilometers. This is mind-boggling, okay? And the phase is not lost. So this is really a big, of course, applications. But you can do the opposite also. Instead of having Of course, light is typically 10 to the 14th Hertz, okay? 100 terahertz, okay? And so there's a lot of oscillations, okay? But, and of course, you know, it's coherent over hundreds, thousand kilometers, and the period is a micrometer. So you do the math and you find that it's a lot of oscillations. So, but also, as this is what we are doing here, right? You can produce all the energy in one single period. And so that already gives you an idea of the flexibility of light. You can go, you know, with zillions of periods and up to a single period. And of course, and when you have a, so why do we want really to have a zillions of period? It's because this, if you generate a short pulse of light with a single, the idea is trying to make it very, very short. First application is you can really take pictures of very fast reactions in a, you know, in a femtosecond scale. That is, reactions which occurs in atomic physics or nuclear physics in a very, very short time scale. You can capture them, okay? Because the pulse is very short. But the other applications, and that was also very exciting to me, the other application that the pulse is very, very short. The pulse is in a femtosecond regime. That is, if I can produce 1 joule in 1 femtosecond, I can produce a petawatt. So a petawatt is something, I'm talking only petawatt peak. A petawatt is, if you consider that the reactors, you know, producing energy is gigawatt energy, right? A typical, you know, energy producing facilities, gigawatt. Okay, gigawatt is 10 to the 9. So a petawatt is a million of these reactors, which means that you are producing the power produced by the total so it's basically the power of the grid. The world grid power is about 1,000 times the world grid power. But the catch, of course, is in 1 femtosecond. But that gives also an idea how short is 1 femtosecond. It's another way to see it. So, but anyway, so you have this phenomenal peak power, okay? But there is much more than that, because we can now, you know, use it to produce the largest temperatures. The largest pressure, we'll see. The largest acceleration, because you can accelerate particles, you know, to relativistic speed. But because you can do it in a femtosecond, that means you have huge accelerations, and you will see the consequence of that. And of course, the largest field, because the electric field, this laser is electromagnetic field. Okay, so for me, that was really, of course, at that time when I was thinking about that, I was not thinking about all this, but now this is what is occurring, and why, I propose this facility, because of all these incredible applications in all fields. It goes from, so now, of course, because the pulses are very short, and then, you go from atomic physics, because the optics, laser field optics, the visible, is EV regime, electron volt. So this is the atomic realm, So you go from EV to now to GeV and TeV regimes, okay? So it's completely different applications, but important applications. Here I mentioned that now you can produce, this petawatt. What is petawatt? What is amazing also is the fact that light provides pressure, a little bit of pressure. You don't feel it, of course, okay, but provides pictures. But if I take as I said, my petawatt, which is a few thousand times the power of the grid, and I am going to focus this power on a spot size which is limited by the diffraction, which means a micrometer spot size. You are producing these huge intensities, which correspond to huge peak power. The best that we can produce. Okay. So that's just to give you, and which means it's about 10 million Eiffel Tower. That's the pressure you will feel on your finger if you were able to do the experiment, which is difficult to do. But it's typically 1 million Eiffel Tower on your finger. Okay. So anyway, so now going back to I have here, I'm plotting the intensities as a function of years. So when Mehman demonstrated his lasers, of course it was already a huge improvement over what was existing in terms of light. But it was intensity, this we like really to, the unit is watt per square centimeters. So typically, we were in a regime of 10 to the 8 or watt per square centimeters. And so we could increase the intensity, and immediately we couldn't increase, and so we wanted to increase it because we knew that we could, if we had more and more, we could really do new physics and new application and so on. So we wanted to do that, but we couldn't do it. It stops at 10 to the 12 or so watt per square centimeter. Can you see about? You had the plateau. We couldn't go higher. And the reason why we couldn't go higher is this one. Is because now we were producing intensity, very, very important intensity. So when this light is going into a transparent material, well, the index of refractions, which is, the ratio between the speed of light in the material where the light is propagating and in vacuum. So the index of refraction becomes a function of the intensity. Normally, of course, the intensity, normally the index of refraction is a constant, okay? Unless you have very high intensity. So now we are in a regime of very high intensity, and what we realize that what the light is going at very high intensity, going through the amplifying medium, amplifiers, then the beams is degrading. The beams, is this intensity is producing filaments. Filaments which are burning your materials. Okay, so destroy your material completely. So we couldn't go higher because you were making your advisor very, very mad, like every time when you were having at that time it was very expensive, Ruby was very expensive. So anyway, we had to stop here. And so it's where I had this idea of CPA. I was skiing, I was on the chairlift with my wife, and when it was a beautiful weather and so on. Anyway, so I had the idea of this. Was the idea is we start because the idea is to amplify, right? And the idea also is to keep the pulse very short so you can get very high peak power. So I had to do two contradictory things, I wanted to have a short pulse, and I wanted to have high intensity, and that was not possible unless you do the following. You take this very short pulse that you are producing by what we call oscillators, and in these short pulses, what you are going to do, you are going to stretch it, okay? So how do you do that? Well, you are using this, what we call dispersive element. You are going to use material something which is where the index of refraction, I will say, or the speed of light varies as a function of wavelength. And so this is what we call grating, diffraction gratings, okay? So this is what we have. And with this diffraction grating, what you can do, you can stretch the pulse, because the blue, for instance, of your pulse, because, the fact that the pulse is short, it means, and this is our physician Joseph Fourier from Grenoble, from my place. So if, thank you. Yeah. So if the pulse is short, it means that the spectrum is broad. Okay? So you have so if you have a short pulse, you have necessarily a broad spectrums. So you have blue, you have red, and so on. Okay? And so what you are going to do now is this pulse, which is composed of this wavelength, you are going to stretch them by this pair of gratings and making very long. So what you have done, you haven't changed the energy of your pulse, but now the pulse is much longer. But if you do the stretching correctly, you have not affected the spectrums at all. So all the information are identical. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to amplify the pulses, but not changing the spectrums of your pulse. So if I recompress the pulse with a system which is analog to with grating pairs, I can put the pulse back. But this time, of course, it can be 1,000,000 times higher. And that changed the world. really. And so now I don't have this plateau, you know, and I have now, I can have much higher intensities. And so we will be able now to explore completely different regime in physics, okay? And I'm going to mention that the first things that if you can, now you will be able right, to use the light to accelerate particles. We are going to, so electron, instead of using conventional accelerators, we are going to use the field, the very high field, but you know, I showed that can be huge to accelerate the particles, okay? And you will see that even the particle can be electrons or it can be protons, and you can even produce matter if you focus very, very hard in vacuum. Or you can materialize light because the light is so intense, okay? So, I mean, we got all excited about all the application, and that is, of course, a project Eli. And so this is our project Eli, the three infrastructure, one in Czech Republic, one in Hungary, one in Romania. I'm just going to move faster now. So you see that what we recognize all is the fact that it's really easy to get very, very high intensity. That was really captivating, you know, to very high intensity. What you need to do is to make the pulse very short. And so this is not necessarily easy, okay? And if you can make the pulse very, very short, we can go into completely novel regime, esoteric regime, new physics, and so on. So how can I compress the pulse? I'm not going to be very close. The pulse, of course, which is produced normally by the oscillators, is composed of periods, right? Because the pulse has the single in a red regime, the period is about 1 femtosecond, okay, roughly. So if you have a 20 femtosecond pulse, you are going to have 20 period and so on. And so what you do is you want to compress that, okay? And this is, I have to talk about the work that Ferenc did in this area, which is invented with Orazio Svelto from Milano. He demonstrated that we could really compress the pulse, okay? But the pulses were at the millijoule level, okay? But nevertheless, this, in fact, opened up the possibility for Anne Lhuillier, and their work is based on this. The fact that Ferenc and Orazio Svelto, you know, demonstrated a way which is using capillaries, you know, to broaden the pulse, which means shorten, broaden spectrally the pulse, which means to shorten temporally the pulse. That is, Ferenc really did, that was his big thing. And anyway, so now I'm not going to the detail, but I just wanted to mention this. I wanted to mention the connections between the two Nobel Prizes, you know, from Agostini and yeah. Anyway, so I'm not going to go. So now we can, what we want to do is to get very short pulses, because that's the name of the game. If you get short pulses, then you can very, very high pulse, and then you can do incredible things. And I'm going to talk about these incredible things that you can do. Okay, first, I want to compress the pulse, okay? And we are using, in our case, compressions produced by a relativistic effect. The fact that what we do simply is we take the short pulse which has been produced, is a visible pulse but composed on only one cycle, okay? And we shine this pulse on the target. The target is always made of electrons and protons, okay? No question about this. And but the intensity is very high. So the pressure is very high, I showed you this. So it can push the electrons of the target, you know, at the surface of the target. It's going to push it. And it's going to, so the protons, you know, are going to stay in the back. The electron is going to be move forward. And so you are going to build an electrical field. You have negative charge, positive charge, so you are going to have. And this huge electric field that you are going to produce is going to move the electrons forward, but at relativistic speed, at the speed of light. Okay? So what happened, and this is what I show here, we have the pulse pushing against the electrons. Okay, so you see the electrons are here, and the protons are in the back. So you have this field, and now the electrons move. They move at the speed of light. So what happened is you have the input pulse moving at the speed of light, and you have the mirrors, but because the electrons, a mirror is made of electrons, is what reflects. The electron is moving also at the speed of light. And, you know, I mean, you never ask, when you look yourself in a mirror, you know, you never, maybe, not me, you know, I was always, when I was young, in fact, I said, well, if this mirror is moving at the speed of light, what will happen? You know? And what happened, if the mirror is moving at the speed of light, what happened is that you are going to get the compressions of the pulse. And we can talk about that. In fact, if you are at sea, you know, on the beach, playing with your kids, okay, and if you have the wave coming, like a wave, like coming on the beach, and if you have a scoop, and you try to scoop the wave at the same velocity that the wave is moving, what you are going to have, the water is going to accumulate, you know, and so the wave is going to be compressed. Well, this is just so it's the same idea, yeah. And so we compress the pulse. And the compression can be really very important. It can be, it could be, in fact, in 1,000 times. Which means that now if you are in a femtosecond, you know, regime, immediately you go, maybe, I mean, we show that we could be in a sub-attosecond regime, okay, which means zeptosecond, okay. So this is what, that's a model, and we have done that. But we show that with intensity of 10 to the 23 watt per square centimeter, something that we can do now, we could produce zeptosecond pulses. Like pulses with zeptosecond is 10 minus 21. Okay. So then we And so what can you do with a zeptosecond pulse? You know, what is, first of all, I mean, if the pulse is a zeptosecond, if you have 1 joule, you compress this 1 joule, and you get pulses in a zeta watt regime. But what's exciting, is even much more exciting, is that if you have a pulse in a 10⁻21 second, it means that you have X-ray, it means that you have a gamma ray, it means that you have a gamma ray laser with very high intensity. And since the very beginning of the laser was invisible, and we tried to make it in the UV, in the X-rays, and the gamma ray. And that you get it just like this, okay? So, plus it's very high energy. So this is, of course, very, very important. So this, and you are in a regime where you could get very, very high intensity in 10 to the 29 watt per square centimeters. If you have these intensities, you can light turn into matter, okay? Because this is called Schwinger intensity, okay? Okay, now I have to move fast now, is you have this X-ray high intensity pulse, but what you can do is you can now make accelerators. You will see, but we can use light to accelerate particles. And it's very easy to do that. You take a pulse and you focus into a neutral a gas made of noble gases, okay, for instance. And so this pulse, which is high intensity, is going to ionize this gas. So it's going to push, it's going to make a plasma wave, basically. And so it's going to make a plasma wave, which is going to move with the pulse itself. And in this plasma, you are going to have the electrons which are going to be, which will drop in the bottom of these waves, and you are going to accelerate the pulses. And this way, you can produce high energy electrons. You know, and with the energy will be in a GeV, and you can really accelerate electrons in a GeV per centimeters. Now, maybe you don't, if you, a GeV, let me show, if you have accelerators? I don't, but I mean, in France, for instance, we have accelerators, 5 GeV accelerators. But the 5 GeV accelerator is something that you can get over a few centimeters using the laser, It takes kilometers, okay? They are kilometer size. And of course, we know this LHC laser, the LHC, Large Hadron Collider systems, and they want to accelerate particles with TeV, but it's not centimeters, it takes 27 kilometers to do that. Okay, so you see that we have now a technique which can be very, very efficient to produce accelerated particles. And you will see that now we can make on a very compact scale, we can make particles of very high energy. So one thing that we can do also, we can accelerate protons, and if we can accelerate protons, you can produce easily neutrons. And neutrons are very important we'll see that neutrons are important, to produce energy, for instance, and I'm going to talk about. And we can produce neutrons with energy in a GeV. And this is, at this energy, the neutrons are relativistic. Okay, so it's the protons are relativistic. I'm sorry. And if you have relativistic protons, what you can do easily, you can produce neutrons. With 30 MeV, you can produce a neutron. So each protons can produce neutrons. So this is very important for, I will show, for applications in the medical field as well, but in society with energy. So this, if you want really to do the same thing, but with centimeter size accelerators based on lasers, this is the type of things that you have to build. Okay, this is the proton accelerators, which is producing relativistic protons. So what we could produce with centimeters, it takes kilometers. And this is true. Okay, this is no joke. It's absolutely true. And so immediately what you can do, you can say, well, I can use this now with, this is what's exciting about this high intensity laser, because if you want really to produce cosmic rays, you can produce cosmic rays in your lab, okay? Rays which are in 10 to the 15 EV and things like that exist only in cosmos. And you can duplicate that in your lab. And I'm not going to go. Yeah, there's another one very exciting. I like that is you can produce analog, black hole analog. Okay, black hole analog because what you can use, we can accelerate very efficiently particles, okay? In a femtosecond, we can accelerate particles to the speed of light. In a femtosecond, you see the accelerations? If you are in your car and you decide to go, at the speed of light, with conventional acceleration, it will take you 10 your lifetime, okay? Here, we can go to the speed of light in femtoseconds. That means you have enormous accelerations. And now, if you connect that with the equivalent principle of Einstein, which says that gravity and acceleration are the same thing. This means that you produce the analog of black hole of 100 million sun. You see, so this is completely, 10,000 suns, I mean. So it's amazing because you bring that in your lab, Anyway, so now of course the very, very big application, because we are more or less in the medical theme here. So as I said, we can produce protons. And if I can produce protons, I can do proton therapies, okay? Which is very normally, it's very, proton therapy has this huge advantage, is that instead over electrons and X-rays and all that, is that you can burn the tumors without burn. I'm making things short. You can burn the tumors without burning the healthy tissues. Okay. And also you can produce radionuclides and so on the spot. You know, that's very important applications. And the other thing that you can do is you can do what we call flash RT, ultra high dose rays therapy. You know, you can really do therapy now with very high dose. Okay, high and short dose. It had been shown that if you can do that, you know, it can be very, very efficient. Okay, you can do a new kind of radiotherapy. They call that flash radiotherapy. But for us, I mean, they started to do that with conventional system. Okay, but for the laser, it's a piece of cake to make very fast and very short pulse. Okay. We can do that very efficiently. So I think we have really a beautiful area here to work on. And the other things, and I'm going to stop after that, is where it can produce clean energy. Okay. This is clean energy because the fact that we just produce neutrons. Okay. So okay, now, if you produce nuclear energy, because I think nuclear energy is absolutely essential, and you know, for instance, you take a gigawatt power plant, for instance, you know, it takes about 100 train of 100 wagon, you know, to produce the energy of nuclear power plant. Of course, with uranium, you can do much better. You can get, with 300 tons of uranium, you can do the same job. And if you are using thorium, it's even better. 1 ton of thorium will do the job. So when we do nuclear fissions, you know, what we do is, of course, we are using the neutrons. We want to fission the nucleus of uranium, okay? And so you release, you fission the nucleus, right? And this fission, you know, you make fragment. And our fragments, you know, are very short time. And they don't really are not, these ones they are not really dangerous. What is dangerous is when sometimes you don't fraction, you don't fission the neutrons, the nucleus, you just, the neutron is absorbed by the nucleus. And that time you make a new species. And this one is what we call, you know, minor actin, en anglais, minor actinides. And now this is a bad guy, okay? This is a bad guy, and he lives very long, as we know, and we tried, of course, to bury them, you know, in the ground. So instead of burying, now, because with the neutrons, what you could do transmutations. But is we take this bad stuff and like neptunium, you know, which lives for millions of years, you know, and then you can fission it, and you can make new elements, and this one, I mean, lifetime can be as short as minutes or seconds. So this is what we would like to do with Gabor and so on, right? Transmutations by using. So so we are. Of course, we have also one thing. If we want ray transmutation, we cannot do with the existing laser. Okay, we have to with the existing lasers. They have the peak power, yes, but they don't have the average power. Okay, and so and the efficiency also. So we have to come up. We had to come up with a new laser which is based on fibers. Yeah, so we can cool them, and they can be efficient because it can be pumped by diodes, you know, and we are using fibers, doped fibers. Anyway, so this is basically there's another big application that I like, but I'm not going to talk about it. It's really trying to clean the space debris by using these lasers. And I'm going to stop here, I think. My conclusion is with extreme light, it's capable of producing very large field, very large accelerations, very large temperature, and large pressure. I mean, largest acceleration, largest temperature, largest pressures. Okay, so it's time to stop now. So I'm going to stop here, and I want really to thank you very much. And you know, if you have any questions, you know, go ahead.